All right, tonight we are continuing with the temptation of Christ, and I'm trying to keep my notes short enough that we can be out at least by no later than 8 o'clock, but even that makes it difficult for those who have trouble driving at night. So I'm trying to keep it short, and if I type 3 pages of notes, I'm going to go longer than hopefully I would with just 2 pages. All right, very, very brief. Last week we saw that John, in 1 John chapter 2, John summed up all of the temptations in the world. He said, for all that is in the world, that includes all, everything, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So, and we discussed how that, Jesus was not tempted to speed. Is speeding sin? Speed limit's 45, and you do 60. Obviously, you're breaking the law. That's obvious. But are you sinning as well? Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. The other day at the police lunch, were you standing there? Yeah. When I worked with the county police, on the interstate, we would give people 15 before we stopped them. At 16, you're probably going to get a ticket. And I thought that was extremely generous. In fact, the first time we ran radar on the interstate, I asked the officer, I said, what do you give them before you stop them? He said, I give them 15 before I stop them. And I said, we're going to sit here all night and never stop anybody. Well, we never sat more than 5 minutes in that spot without getting some. Florence, and don't you dare tell this. Oh, never mind. I can't say it because we're live streaming. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you later, but they're even more generous than county was. But speeding is sin. The speed limit's 55 and you're doing 65. That is sin. Because we're to obey the government, we're to obey the rulers of the land, and that's the speed limit that they set. Jesus wasn't tempted to smoke cigarettes. They didn't even have cigarettes back then. He wasn't tempted to commit the individual sins. And I made a distinction between individual sins, which could be lust, of the eye. It could be lusting after a woman. It could be gluttony. It could be particular sins or what we think of. The Bible sums up all sin, any sin you can think of, into 3 categories. And we covered this. The lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life covers every sin that you can possibly think of. Jesus was tempted in these 3 categories. And we'll see toward the end how he overcame each of them. In Galatians chapter 5, Paul gives us an example of the lust of the flesh. And you'll see that he names particular sins, but he includes them under the lust of the flesh. In verse 14, all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if ye bite and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed one of another. If I'm running you down, criticizing you, and attacking you and carrying bitterness against you, be careful, because my hatred will eat me up. And if you retaliate, it'll eat both of us up, and we both will be consumed. Have you ever met somebody that was just consumed with hate? I have known a few people. They were just consumed with hate. Well, that's what happens, even among Christians, because that's who Galatians is written to. Verse 16, this I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. In the context, what is he talking about, the lust of the flesh? He's talking about biting and devouring one another. So hatred, envy, strife is part of, under the category of, the lust of the flesh. I will get even with you if it's the last thing I do on earth. I'm going to get even with you. Or I'm going to make your life miserable. By taking that attitude, I'm satisfying the fleshly desire for revenge, the fleshly desire to get even, and Paul summed it up as the lust of the flesh. The flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would. Last week we looked at Jesus tempted with the lust of the flesh. He was starving, hadn't eaten for 40 days and 40 nights. He was starving, literally. And Satan tempted him to satisfy the lust of the flesh by turning stones into bread and fulfilling or satisfying his physical desire or physical lust. And we looked at other things. We looked at men who they have 20 different women plus their wife that they're all with, and they just can't seem to satisfy themselves. Well, they're trying to satisfy the lust of the flesh, and you will never satisfy the lust of the flesh. I had a couple of alcoholics in my family, and when they were sober, they would swear up and down they're never going to drink again. But their flesh would desire alcohol, and they would yield to the lust of their flesh. Gambling is an addiction that appeals to the lust of the flesh. If I can just get one more quarter, I think I can win. And I know a gentleman. Well, I know a man. Let me rephrase it. Who was a multi-millionaire. His estimated value was $25 million. He ended up filing for bankruptcy because he blew $25 million over in Lawrenceburg on that casino over there. $25 million. He blew he blew everything he owned, lost his farm, lost his business. He owned multiple businesses in Covington, lost every one of them because he kept thinking the lust of the flesh. I'm going to win, I'm going to win, I'm going to win. And he ended up losing everything and had to move into the basement of his son just to have a place to live. The lust of the flesh can be anything that takes control of us and we just feel like, I've got to yield. I've got to yield. Have you ever heard of a kleptomaniac? Everybody know what a kleptomaniac is? Okay. All right. Tonight we look at the pride of life. It's out of order that Paul gave them, but is still one of the three categories. Notice what Satan tried to do in Matthew 4. Beginning with verse 5, then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple, up on one of the highest points of the temple, and saith unto him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, jump off the edge here, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Satan said, if you're really God, throw yourself off the very peak of the temple, because it is written in the Bible. The Bible says, and he quoted it almost accurately, he will give his angels charge concerning thee, and their hands will bear you up so that you won't even dash your foot against a stone. Now, I do believe that each Christian has a guardian angel that God has assigned to watch over them. One verse, and there are others, but you can read it in Hebrews 1. But to which of the angels said he at any time, sit on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool? So he's talking about angels. Are they angels? Not all ministering spirits. Ministering means servants or slaves or overseers, keepers. They are ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation. So every one of us who are saved have a guardian angel, and I'm sure we all have done some pretty dumb things, and we look back and think, boy, my angel was watching over me. I'm not going to tell you some of the dumb things I did, but I should have been killed 1,000 times because of stupid things that I did, not realizing the danger, not realizing the possible consequences, not realizing the risk I was taking. And I did some things that literally I should have been killed. And my angel, my guardian angel, kept me from a lot of things that I did dumb. One thing, and I'll tell you this one, it's because to this day, and that's been, it was before we were married, so it was 55, 56 years ago. I was driving down a country road, and the sign said 1-lane bridge ahead. Well, I couldn't stop. I mean, I was going a little faster than the speed limit, and I knew I was not going to be able to stop. And there was a car coming at me, and he couldn't stop, and we passed on that bridge. It's a 1-lane bridge, and 2 cars passed. I have spent years trying to figure that one out. I still can't figure that one out. Theoretically, it's impossible, but we did it. I don't know how. But I remember thinking when he was on the other side and I was on the other side, oh, thank you, God. If there's ever been a miracle, that was one. I think we do have guardian angels who, and there's probably some other dumb things that we've done. And I bet I'm not the only one that looks back and says, there is no way I should have survived. But that doesn't mean, and that's what Jesus answered, and we'll come back. One of the very last points will be, how did Jesus overcome each of these temptations? But Jesus said, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Doesn't mean that because my guardian angel has kept me from being killed more times than I wish, definitely more times than my wife wishes. That was supposed to be funny. You know, he's kept me alive more times, never mind. If you have to explain it, it doesn't mean that because God has an angel watching over me, that I'm going to go out and stand in front of an oncoming train and say, I'm going to stand here because the angel is going to deliver me. Or, and I've said this to numerous people who insist on driving 100 in a 55 zone. Well, if I get killed, I'm saved, I'm going to heaven. Yeah, well, there's some things worse than being killed. Being paralyzed, being, permanently injured. But just because we have a guardian angel does not mean that we're not supposed to use common sense. How did this temptation appeal to the lust of the flesh? And I tried to put it in our day and time. Look what I did. I passed, 2 cars passed on a 1-lane bridge. Boy, God was looking after me, and we began bragging about, the fact that we did some really stupid things and we survived. No, it's not. Look what I did. I jumped off the pinnacle of the temple, and I didn't even so much as hit my feet against a stone. People take careless chances and then brag about what they did. I've heard the expression, well, I can't die before my time. And there is a sense in which that is true. It is appointed unto man to die, when to die, where to die, how to die. But Solomon also said that you can die before your time. Now don't ask me to harmonize those. Solomon wrote it, why will you die before your time? And as I said, you may not die. You could lose a leg, lose 2 legs, lose an arm, lose 2 arms and a leg, or 2 legs and an arm. You could break your neck and be paralyzed. You could do something stupid and end up blind. It's not that you're afraid to die. They believe that somehow their angel will watch over them and protect them no matter how stupid they are or how stupid they do something. I don't have to worry, my angel's going to take care of me. It's often because they have an inflated opinion of their worth to God and their worth on earth. I'm so valuable, God won't let me die. I'm so valuable that when you start thinking that the world can't get along without you, I hate to spoil your opinion of yourself, but Nobody is invincible. I learned that a long time ago. Well, what if, you're the pastor, what if you died tomorrow? I hope I don't, but if I did, I'm not irreplaceable. I know that goes against the pride of life. I like to think nobody could replace me, and in a sense, nobody could replace me. But in reality, when I think that I am invincible, I am undefeatable, I cannot be hurt, I cannot be injured, it's usually because we have a problem with the pride of life. I am so important. Look at me. Everybody thinks I am great. Well, not everybody. People do all kinds of things to show how much better they are than others. And I don't make these things up. I couldn't make them up. I am so good, God blessed me beyond my expectation. If God blessed you, it's because of grace. If God blesses any of us, it's because of grace. Some people brag about all the things they've accomplished. I remember, I'm trying to think, I think we were in Texas, and I came back. The church I had pastored in Ohio was having, I believe it was an anniversary or something, and they invited me back to preach. And someone who I won't name, I don't think my wife would know them. Casey might know them, but I doubt that. They were bragging about, I had made a statement, and, they said, you made that statement because you're not as educated as I am. I have my PhD. They actually said that. You know what their problem was? They had a problem of pride of life. I'm smarter than you. Well, I hated to tell him. I wished I could tell him. But later, I went back and looked up the verse that he said I was wrong on. I looked at the context. I looked at everything I could look at. And with his PhD, guess what? He was wrong. But he was bragging. I had another man that, I was pastoring and said something about money, and he laughed and said, I make more in a day than you make in a week. Well, he probably did back then. You know what his problem was? The pride of life. Whether you make $100 a week or $10,000 a week, it's still only the grace of God that gives it. And we studied when we were going through, what was it? I guess it was the Pauline epistles. Those who God has blessed with money have a responsibility to use it for His honor and glory. You don't have to give it away, but you don't brag about, Well, anyway, we do all kinds of things to get the praise of men. That's one reason, one of several, but one reason I don't like clapping in church. Now, if you go to a ball game, my kids play hockey. Well, my grandkids play hockey or soccer. I get them mixed up. Our boys played basketball, baseball, and man, you get me at a ball game and they hit a home run. You have never heard anybody shout louder than me. Woo-hoo! Woo! Yay! Go! Go! I get 150% into it. But that's out in the world. When we clap, who are we really applauding. I know, I've heard them, give Jesus a hand. What Jesus wants is our worship and our love and our attention. But let's say Casey's the only one here with a super good voice. So Casey gets up and sings a special Sunday. And everybody starts clapping. Who are we really praising? We're really praising, and I meant what I said. You got a super voice. You really do. I don't know if Erica does or not, but maybe we can get a duet going here or something. She's going, But when people clap, they're really applauding the singer. You know, so people will do all kinds of things to get people to say, good job. Now, I also believe if somebody does a good job, you can say, good job. I'm not against that. But the motive in doing it should not be to get people to pat me on the back. The motive in doing anything should be to honor and glorify God. People will lie, cheat, steal, mistreat, and anything else to feed the pride of the flesh. All right, anybody got a question? Answer. Gary. Yes, sir. I haven't studied that question, but I'm just looking at Hebrews 1. It said, sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation. I'm sorry. I see where you're at. You're going on the shall be heirs. Yeah. Yeah. To dovetail on what he said, when you get over in Revelation and John saw this multitude which no man could number, I was already in that multitude, even though I wasn't born yet.
Okay. And that being said, in our time, let's look at it. Okay, I'll just use myself as an example. If before God saved me, things that happened to me before, but God, I was saved from being killed or saved from something terrible happening to me, because even though I'm saved from God died, but regarding me would be what to know me before, because I'm saved God died, though I'm not been saved in our time. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think so. And as soon as you said that, I began thinking. I have known people like you that when God saves them, they said, you know, I should have been killed. God protected me. That was probably your angel keeping you from being killed, keeping you alive to the day and time when God saved you. Yeah, in that sense, I would probably concur. Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't know that I necessarily agree that we have one specific argument, or maybe that's not what you're saying. Where is it in scripture, I can't think of it off the top of my head, where it says he giveth his angel charge over thee. So it may not be one specific. I mean, even when you look at the instance of, I think it was Elisha and the servant on the mountain, they're surrounded by the army, and when Elisha prayed for just to say that we have a guardian angel doesn't mean it's the same angel all the time. It doesn't mean that Gabriel is you and Michael or Charles over here. But are there angels around about us, protecting us, keeping things from us that God wants them to keep from us at
As,
all times?
as stupid as I've been in my life, I had to have a whole fleet of angels watching over me.
But even then, to maybe answer your point a little more directly, it's hard to say exactly when you would get that protection. It's almost like when you talk about salvation, and you talk about what comes first, faith or repentance, well, they come at the same time. But if you get the guardian angel in to save, and you have it your whole life, maybe it's one of those questions we could never even know the answer to.
I think Gary has a point though, because I've heard other people, say that I had a head-on collision. Everybody was killed except me. I've heard a lot of stories, and then God saved them, and they look back and say, God spared me, which I don't think God is necessarily involved in sparing me. I think He gave the angels charge of that. But I do believe that those who God has chosen, God's going to make sure through angels or whatever that Satan cannot kill them until God saves them, if they're truly chosen. Now, some would argue that everybody has a guardian angel. Lost, saved, everybody. I can't say they don't, but I can't find it in Scripture. And I got to find that verse. He giveth his angels charge over thee.
I may be using it wrong, but I'm trying to find it. That's a wonderful life.
Where's my Bible program? Oh, that's right. I knew that. Gary has